creatives, welcome back to my channel. I'm Angela, a graphic designer and an illustrator. Today we're diving back into Adobe InDesign and we're going to create a set of posters. I think I'm going to do 2, maybe 3, depending on how much we get done. This video is kindly inspired by a comment from one of you. I will post it up here on the screen. I decided that, you know what, let's do something a bit different. I have done a few InDesign videos so far. If you have not seen those, go ahead and check them out. I will link them somewhere on the screen for you all. If you all are enjoying my videos, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. For all of my lovely subscribers, thank you. For anyone who is new here, welcome. We are going to using the principles of anti-design. Anti-design has come back around. As far as it may seem or appear, anti-design doesn't seem to have any rules. So we're going to break the rules, which is all anti-design is. I'll put up some examples here. Anti-design was all about expressionism, evoking expression and feeling through the use of imagery and type rather than just following like the rules and the guidelines of graphic design. So I have the program open right here. We're going to dive into the multiverse today. I watched Doctor Strange. It was definitely an interesting experience. We're going to create some posters for the multiverse of madness. I have the main character. We're starting with Doctor Strange. By the way, there are some tips and tricks in this video as well, so if you are new to InDesign, if you want to get into InDesign doing like editorial work or doing like catalogs or doing brochure work or doing like lookbooks and stuff like that, this is a good all-around type video for you guys. For instance, the zoom tool, you hit Z on your keyboard, you get like this little magnifying glass. Hit Alt or Option, it zooms out. If you just click, it zooms in, but it doesn't always zoom into where you want it, not like in Illustrator, where it zooms in exactly where you want it to, and it doesn't have like a smooth, continuous ease in, ease out type of magnifying. The way to get around that, if you want to see the entire page, like right there, press Ctrl-0 on your keyboard. It may be different for you. If you go up to the top taskbar, click on View, choose Fit Page in Window, and it will do that for you. There's also an option to fit the spread in the window, which is 2 pages side by side. Press whatever the keyboard shortcut is for you. I'm pretty sure I changed mine. Mine's Ctrl-0. If I press that, you'll be able to see both pages together at the same time. If I make a third poster, I'll probably show you that to you guys. So we're going to create madness by breaking some rules here. Okay, I do have him central so far just because that's the way the photograph works. I have a few things already selected here. Bring in this photo. This is the Darkhold from the film. I'm not going to spoil the film for any of you. It's just the name of the book, okay? In InDesign, you can do some effects, kind of, blend modes, if you will. Select on the image under the Properties panel over here to the right, or wherever your Properties panel happens to reside. Sometimes it's on the left. There is an FX key right here, where you can add an object effect to anything you select. Click on FX. There is options there for you on a pop-up window. I chose transparency just to get me into the blend modes pop-up menu. I selected hard light for this. The original looked like that. Selected hard light. It gives this really cool effect right here. Now some of the imagery, like if you're using stock photos or photos with backgrounds, you are going to have to hop into Photoshop and remove those backgrounds. But I'll probably showcase that in another video if you guys want to see that, if you guys don't know how to do that. For now, I'm just choosing these PNGs. Go ahead and press OK, and we have something that looks like that. I do have a background, yes, right here. This is the Sanctum. Let's hide Doctor Strange for a minute. He's not always the center of attention. Your layers panel is going to be very helpful to you if you are doing these multi-layered imagery in InDesign. The hard light changes depending on whatever's behind it, because the effect will change depending on the tones and the colors and the shapes that are behind. So this is the Sanctum. The Sanctum does have an inner glow on it, and I can go in and turn that off just like so. It will disappear, if you will, momentarily. Your settings are not gone. So this is what I started with. This is their fortress, if you will, I guess you would say. This is the one that Doctor Strange is in because it's the one that's in New York. I added an inner glow, but I added a color. So the color I added, because it is the multitude of madness, I added a color of red. And this is just your basic standard red color. If you click on it, your swatches show up from the basic swatches that are always defaulted in InDesign. I just picked the default red. I lowered the opacity a little bit just so you can see it. The inner glow gives you an option whether you want it to be on the edge or in the center. I chose center. That will give you more options. So I'm just gonna click OK. This is looking very sinister so far. I did incorporate, I added in this image, this one right here. With the effects of the inner glow on the sanctum underneath, it gives it this beautiful kind of like distressed look and feel. Kind of like almost like a doomsday feel, if you will. I thought it was really cool. You can mess with the blend modes as much as you want. I'm going to show you an instance where you can do multiples. I have this image of Doctor Strange here. Let me zoom in for you all. So if you try to use the magnifying glass the same as you did in Illustrator, you're just going to do that. And it's going to zoom in until like a few pixels. And if you zoom out too far, it's going to showcase the fact that here's your pages. By the way, I did not mention, these pages are all 12 by 14 poster size. I'm going to press Ctrl 0 on my keyboard so we can get our page back into view. Very handy shortcut. I want to duplicate him to make him look like he's like coming off of himself, if that makes sense. Let me open up the original Doctor Strange. There he is. Alright. It's looking all very chaotic at the moment. I'm going to make it look like it's coming off of the original Doctor Strange's face and then going and fading out that way to this one. All you gotta do is mess with the blend modes and duplicate. The way to duplicate anything in the layers panel is to select the little box over here. It usually brightens up with a different color, it changes colors. And then all you have to do is just pull it onto this plus sign in the bottom of the layers panel. It will make a duplicate. I created another one on top here, and I just moved him up into place. One of the great things about InDesign is even if you have an image, let me just pull him out here, that has a lot of excess space, you can actually take him, you can double click in, and the box goes from blue to orange. Pretty sure that's the default. You can move the image inside the container box and you can get more information if that's what you want. You can change the dimensions of the container box as well. You don't have to keep it to this. Click and drag in a corner. It just cuts it off. See that? Very handy. With the one below him, I did duplicate that one. With the duplication, I added an effect, the hard light at 68%. This gives you a really cool kind of like gradated effect down. Let's duplicate this second one once again by using our trick, selecting the image and then dragging down into this plus box. Don't drag it into the trash can, you'll delete it. Drag it into the plus box, put it on top, go to our effects, blend modes, window. What would look best? I usually just go through these just to see what would look better. Ooh, overlay looks nice. Hard light, color dodge is too much. Color burn is too much in the other direction. I'm thinking hard light will work the best. Duplicated him once more, put it in between the two that I duplicated before. So that way it looks like he's kind of like radiating out. It's a really cool effect. Let's pull in another character. There he is. Another character of Doctor Strange in the film. There's no spoilers here, guys, promise. Okay. Select this, duplicate this one, put a multiply effect. So this is the normal, which is way too bright for this imagery and it's just a little too like black and white. I added a multiply effect which punches out like all the bright tones. I duplicated him and gave some of his light back to his face by adding an overlay effect. So this was the normal. And when you duplicate, it does duplicate all of the effects that are on it. So when it duplicated, we went from that to that. Instead of the multiply, because I thought it was going to be too dark, I didn't want it to fight so much with the main image, utilize an overlay, which brought more of the light back to the image. And you have this nice kind of like collage going on. We're going to add a little bit more chaos to this. Just a little, with another image. This is what the original image looked like. The way to create the knockout shape, this covered up the main image that I wanted here. I chose to create a pathway. Now the only way to create a pathway is to use the pen tool. I created this half circle and then I followed the lines of the page to create this shape. So that is the shape that I created with the pen tool. You can take the path that you created, select the image that you want it to punch out, go up to the object panel on the top toolbar, go to paths, and make compound path. And it will make this pathway for you. You can have the top image on top without it kind of ruining the rest of it. For this image, did a 60% hardline on it, duplicated it down. Let's do like 80% overlay on top. That way you get his distorted face down there as well. For this version of him up here, I called him the corpse. Because he looks like a corpse to me. Rotate him a little bit, just so you don't have like a lot of these harsh angles coming out. When it comes to resizing images, you want to make sure that you hold down Control and Shift or Command and Shift at the same time, so it doesn't just take the bounding box. If you were just to hold down Shift and do it, all it does is expand the container box, the blue line container box that's around the image, not the actual image itself. Because what InDesign does is it puts your images in a container box. When you select Shift and click and drag to expand something, it only expands the container box and not the image itself that's inside. Make sure you choose Control Shift or Command Shift. That way it'll expand or decrease the container box and the image inside. I did it again. The magnifying glass. Okay. When I have something that happens like this, where it's cut off from the page, and I don't want it cut off, not that it's going to be seen on the final product, but still. Select the container box, choose the direct selection tool, click to activate the point, and you just drag it into place so it won't come off the side of the page. And we have something that looks like this. It looks really quite cool. Now I'm doing this all free-handed, but if you are not really that well versed in InDesign, go up to Layout on the top toolbar, Margins and Columns, select the column number right here. Just make sure that you give yourself some margins and a gutter. A gutter is technically bleed, so if there's any space that runs off in printing, your image will still be there and it won't have like a white border around it. Here's our 4 columns. When we go into View Screen Mode, select Preview, and this is what it'll look like when it prints. Let's move the book. Go back into Review Mode. You can set these up with keyboard shortcuts if you would like to. Alright, where is that layer? It's always important to name your layers so you can see them. There it is. There we go. I like it more like there. Next is to add some text to this madness that's happening here. With the release of the film, they used a serif font. I selected a few serif fonts over here. There's a whole array of serif fonts that you can choose. I like to stay within the same parameters of what I'm working with. I selected Baskerville Old Face just because it's a classic serif, Georgia Bold, and Minion Variable Concept with the display of bold. Minion is one of those classic fonts as well. It has nice lines here for the R, just like the Baskerville Old Face. Georgia might be too much, so I'm gonna get rid of that one. Baskerville or Minion. It's hard to choose sometimes because I like the condensed look of the Minion, but I also really like how classical the Baskerville looks. I think I'm going to choose the Minion Variable Concept. There is one thing I'm missing here, and that is to create a demonized look of this. I added a rectangle of red, bring down the opacity to about 60%. Let's do 60. There we go, 60 even. Gives you this demonized dark look. This main Doctor Strange character is not so bright. I really enjoy doing anti-design type of work because you get to like play around more with so much. That's looking a little bit more chaotic. For the text, I chose the Minion Variable Concept because it was the one that was the most condensed and it was the one that has the most options that you can do. So I have this one set with all caps option here in the character panel. If you click that off, this is what the font will look like normally. With the all caps option selected, it just puts it all into all caps. I want the letters kind of like all over the place. Let's do a duplication. A quick tip on how to duplicate something very easily. It's either Option or Alt on your keyboard. If you click and drag while holding down Alt or Option, it'll duplicate whatever you want to duplicate. I don't know how many I'm going to need, so I'm just going to duplicate quite a few. Alright, select our type tool. I'm going to remove everything else. You know what? I'm wondering, should I even do Doctor Strange or should I just do Strange? Let's do Strange instead. Do S first. Now, InDesign is a little bit different to Illustrator in the fact that you can't just select the container box and change the fill color. Because if you do that, it fills the entire text box. You will need to select your type tool, select the letter or the word, double click on the fill, and then change the fill color. I know, InDesign is strange like that, but I guess it makes sense. And let's pick a big font size. 120 point size. Looks good so far. The container box is much bigger than it needs to be. You can go in here and like do this to decrease it, or you can do a keyboard shortcut. I love keyboard shortcuts. Press Control Alt C or Command Option C on a Mac. If you want to know where the shortcut is, it's under Object, go to Fitting, Fit Frame to Content is the one that you want. I don't know if it's defaulted to Control Alt C or Command Option C. You guys let me know in the comments. I may have changed mine. I change all my stuff to make it work for me. I suggest you guys do that too. And that's where you find it if you don't know your keyboard shortcut for it. I duplicated all these earlier, but now that I have the one letter, I'm just going to delete them, hold down my Alt or Option key if you're on a Mac, and then click and drag to duplicate this down, and then we're just going to change the letters. And sometimes this happens where the container box does no longer fit depending on the letter. That's okay. You can just drag out these sides while it's selected, do your keyboard shortcut, and then you're good to go. I'm just going to do this over and over and over again until I get all the words. Words? Letters. All the letters. The keyboard shortcut for deselection is Control-Shift-A or Command-Shift-A. That may change as well. If you go to the Edit toolbar at the top, go down to Select All or Deselect All. It shows you your keyboard shortcuts there. Oh, there's a lot of letters here. Okay. And last one, E. We have our letters. With anti-design, it may seem like there is no like rhyme or reason to where things are placed, but there is. A lot of anti-design work is based on complex grids for the Fibonacci sequence. If you guys have never seen the Fibonacci sequence, this is it. It's also known as the golden ratio. Most of them are based on that. You can see that in many different areas in the world of design. I don't think this is big enough. Now, since this is Doctor Strange, move this down in the stacking order here. And then we're gonna kind of go into this kind of like zigzag pentagon type of shape. It's kind of like a rolling theme within the film, so I think that would be really good. I want the letters to really stand out and be bold. And this is gonna be central to the entire piece. If this ever happens to you where it's like, oh, I increased the size and oh my god, it disappeared, don't panic. All you have to do is select the containing box, pull the sides until you can see your letter again, fit the containing box to the letter by using your keyboard shortcut. Everything is fixable because InDesign doesn't like your images to be destroyed. It really doesn't like any of your work to be destroyed. And I really should save this. If you're working with me and you haven't saved your document, save your document, because the worst thing that happens is when the application crashes and all the work that you've been doing for the past 2 hours disappears. That has happened many times before. It's actually happened on this channel before. If you guys have seen a few of my Illustrator videos, you may have seen that. I'm gonna put the T right here. So I want this to kind of work in this type of fashion. Let me just place all these first and then we'll get into reasons why. So I placed these for a reason. I'm just going to move this one over slightly. And I'll explain that reason right now while I put these in the stacking order. By the way, stacking orders are pretty simple. When you have your layers panel open, you select the select box over here in the layers panel to the right to move this by clicking and dragging and then changing the stacking order to whatever you need it to be. The reason why I put the letters in this type of sequence, one, because it follows the Fibonacci sequence. Yes, it's kind of like in a mishmash form, but the way you read from left to right, it starts with S-T-R-A-N-G-E. It's all about the flow of motion and how you read it. This looks a little like it's all over the place, but it's really not. It gives you the chaotic tornado type of motion of this film while also still being completely legible. The N has the color dodge effect on it. I'm going to do the same thing with the G. Click on the effects option there, and let's choose the color dodge effect. Let's take the percentage down from 100 down to about 80. Duplicate this one down. Do a normal at 100%. Just so you still get the lightness of it. I want to be down here under the dark hold. Let's choose our effect, color dodge, duplicate this layer, bring it down. I'm gonna do a hard light effect on that one just so you can still see it. The only one I didn't really do anything to is the R. So for the R, we'll do a difference effect, which makes it look like it's disappeared. Let's duplicate the layer, put it on top, go in and do an overlay so you get it looking a bit more like that. All right, so for A, we're going to do something similar. So you have these different effects happening on the letters, but the letters are still letters, so you can still click in with the type tool and change it if you want to. So one of the great things about InDesign, it doesn't destroy your text paths. I'm going to do an overlay for the S. On top, I'm going to do like an 85% hard light. So that way it still looks like it's coming from the background. So you can still see like all of these things. The A, I want to duplicate once more. There we go. We'll change the blend mode back to normal so it still stands out. And last and not least is the T. Let's duplicate it immediately. For down here, we're going to do a similar color burn, and then for the one on top, we're going to do a color dodge. Do 60%. There is poster number 1. I think that looks really quite cool. What do you guys think? Chaos everywhere. Let's move over into our next poster, which is going to be down here. If you guys don't know how to add pages, there is a panel called Pages. If you go into your window on the top toolbar, you can select the Pages panel. All your panels are going to be showcased in this toolbar. So we're going to be on page 2. Put that on a separate layer. And the first image that I have is this one. Now, this image is of what the multiverse looked like in the first film. I liked how dark and kind of like playful in a way that it was, even though it's chaotic and looks kind of gross. I liked how that looked. Let's take this, duplicate it down, go into our properties panel, and let's choose the blend mode. A 60% color burn, just to make it a little bit more bright, a little bit more bold, a little bit more daring. This one I have an effect on already of screen, but this is what the normal image looked like. It's the same image that is on the first poster, but I brought it down here. Select OK. There was this image of Doctor Strange, which I think is really quite funny. Let's add a blend mode to this one. If you couldn't tell, I really like using blend modes here. I'm going to do a hard light of about 80%. And then the duplicated one, I did a color dodge of about 70%, but let's see what 80% looks like. Okay, there we go. So it makes him look like he's kind of like phased and faded into the background here. Move him down a little bit. For our letters, let me grab our letters from layer 1. Bring that up into layer 2. And then we can just pull him over. The S has an effect on it still, so let's change it. Let's bring it back to normal so we can see it better. So this one's going to be multiverse. Duplicate this just like we did the other one with the word strange. Add all the letters in here. Fit the container box around them. I don't have my grids open. There we go. The grids help. For any of you who've seen the movie so far, did you like it? Let me know in the comments down below, but please don't spoil it for anyone else. I don't like it when people spoil movies for everyone else. We'll swap the L and I. Swap these two. For certain rules in InDesign, not that InDesign has a lot of rules, but you can take something and you can run it off the page if you feel that there's enough information for you to do so. I'm going to increase the text size of this a bit more to 200. That way I can have it running off the page. Let's increase it to 250. So it will run off the page, but you'll still be able to see it when it's being printed. Let me show you. It'll look like that when it's printing, so you'd still be able to see that it's an actual M. Take this idea and let's apply it to all of these letters. It probably doesn't seem like it has any kind of sense whatsoever, but it actually does. There is a hierarchy of readability when it comes to stuff like this. There's also a hierarchy with where the letters should be placed. When it comes to something like this, there is a level of readability that needs to happen, but it also has to work within the image. Instead of using a Fibonacci sequence, I used a zigzag pattern happening through all of this, and I can illustrate it for you guys because I know it probably doesn't make sense at the moment. So here's the zigzag pattern. There you go, and you can see that. So there is always an order to something, even if you don't think there is when it comes to anti-design. There's always an order. It is still readable no matter what, and now we can add a little bit more fun to this by adding effects, which I love adding effects in here. You're probably wondering why I'm not using like anything else when it comes to these letters. Honestly, it's just because I want them to still be completely readable, because I find that if you have too much distortion then it becomes really illegible, and that's not what I want. Like, I want it to still be legible and interesting without having to sacrifice like one for the other, you know? So you can really have a lot of fun with letters here. Here is our multiverse poster. Let me do my keyboard shortcut, Control-0. This is what it will look like when it prints. Those are some ways that you can create layouts when it comes to anti-design style poster design. We have this one and we have this one. Any of you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments down below. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already if you want to see more of these from me, and I will see you soon, creatives.